Good morning, afternoon, or evening,
Hello.
and welcome, Deb.
Oh, thanks.
I suppose I ought to say welcome, David, as well.
Welcome, Chris. Welcome all.
It's good to see you. You had a good holiday. You were on the high seas, weren't you, Devon, or something?
I was on the Norfolk Broads, not quite so rough and ready, but it was good. It was very rainy, but it was lovely. Yeah, very flat in Norfolk.
Which is good for water. You don't want hills with water, do you?
No, that's true.
Otherwise, it's called a waterfall, I think, Dev.
It is, yeah. Yeah. Well, I did have a fall.
Oh, no.
I know. It's my age.
Did you put enough water with it? That's the problem.
That's a few comments have come back saying that. It was in the middle of the day. I did think of the Pentecost reading. It wasn't 9 a.m, but I hadn't had any spirits or
too much communion wine. That was your problem.
No, it wasn't. No, but yeah. Actually, in the part of Norfolk where we were, I noticed that they have these round towers in a lot of the churches. They're quite interesting. So instead of the square towers that we're used to, they've got a whole load of churches. They look like big chimneys, but they're, the sun's come in. Yeah, it was interesting.
Good. Well, there you
Where
are, Chris.
you, Deb? The sun's shining.
I know, I can't see a thing.
No, there is sun here. If the rain has stopped in Beaminster, the sun is up.
Well, we might get to loaders eventually then.
Yeah. Well, it won't last long. So shall I read, are we going to think
have
about...
a pause. We have a pause.
We're having a pause. Yeah, we'll do that. And
even without Polly, we're having a pause.
Yeah. Okay. Reading from the Gospel of St. Mark, beginning at chapter 2. One Sabbath, he was going through the cornfields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" And he said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need of food? He entered the house of God when Abiathar was high priest and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for any but the priest to eat, and gave some to his companions. Then he said to them, the Sabbath was made for humankind, and not humankind for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." Again he entered the synagogue, and a man was there who had a withered hand. They watched him to see whether he would cure him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand, "Come forward." Then he said to them, "Is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill?" But they were silent. He looked around at them with anger. He was grieved at their hardness of heart and said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was restored. The Pharisees went out and immediately conspired with the Herodians against him, how to destroy him.
Well, where do we start?
The Sabbath.
So we're going to start protesting outside all the shops that are open on the Sabbath?
Well, I did, Chris, when they were bringing in this new rule about Sunday trading. I was working as the branch secretary for the Royal College of Nursing, and eventually I worked for the Royal College of Nursing for 12 months on not sabbatical at all. I was released by the NHS for 12 months.
To convent.
The convent, yeah, as part of when I was doing my MBA, and I went to work with them, and I remember protesting then because it was fairly obvious. The government of the day were saying anybody who works on a Sunday will get double time. You won't be forced upon you. You won't have to do it because of whatever. And you knew that the second it was brought in, everything would be eroded. It would be just part of common life, and everybody would be expected and forced to do it, and there wouldn't be, you know, double time pay or anything like that, which is what's happened. So yes, I protested outside Sainsbury's and Tesco's and all the other big shops in Wolverhampton at the time, because I knew that it would be, in my eyes, a retrogressive step to do. What we've lost, I think, and that's the beauty of the Sabbath, isn't it? This time together, recreational time with a community or a family together. We have no defined recreational time or off, because it's the working world 7 days a week, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, Sunday was markedly different when I was young. We all remember that. There were very few things you could do, but there was a sense, if you didn't go to church even, that there was a kind of time of relaxation or renewal of whatever, because you couldn't. There was no employed work in that sense, only emergency services, and there was a time for doing your own thing. Even the weekend was very special. Today, the weekend just morphs into any other time, doesn't it? I think it does anyway. I don't know.
Did you do anything special on the bank holiday this week?
On Monday?
Yeah.
Yes, I went down and cleaned and swept and prepared all the back garden patio area of our house. I could spray it with its cleaner yesterday.
I think, though, I think in this passage, Jesus is talking about the way that we can be bound-ridden by rules if they're put on us to have the upper hand, because the Pharisees all through this passage are just looking over his shoulder, waiting for him to make a wrong step in their eyes. And so what are you saying about the Sabbath and having some sort of sacred time is a good principle, but they're using it to trip him up and sort of saying, well, you keep the Sabbath, whatever. And Jesus is saying that the Sabbath was made for mankind or humankind, not the other way around. And I think there's a lot going on in this passage about what is the spirit of Sabbath? What does it really mean? It isn't about Sunday necessarily. It's about making time to rest and to be in God's time, out of time, I suppose. And then the whole thing about the withered hand, like that, he said, well, is it good to do harm on the Sabbath to save life or to kill? It's, should we just walk past because it's Sabbath? It's an understanding of what that really means. But the Pharisees are just wanting to trip him up, aren't they?
Yep.
I think, yeah, like you say, I think that tripping up, but it's also, I've forgotten what I was going to say. That bit, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath.
Yeah.
It's an important point. That means we need a Sabbath. It's good for our health. It's good for our mental health to have a break, to have a time when we can worship God, to have a break from all that we do. Where we've gone down this 7-day-a-week working and families can't gather because there's always somebody doing something. And holidays never coincide, day offs don't coincide. Actually, it means families lose touch.
Yeah.
It means that actually people can't go to church, and we're forever trying to find a time when church is available for everybody. I mean, I dread to think how many times the three of us have sat down. Oh, what about a 6 o'clock Saturday night service? Would people come to that? What about 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon? What about a midweek service? We're always permanently trying to think, what would people be able to come to? And it's just, we're forgetting that the break we need to focus on God and family actually helps us. And it's, therefore, we're struggling to find the rules and the ways and means of doing so. So that bit, You know, the Sabbath was made for humankind and not humankind for the Sabbath. And I think sometimes we can get the whole Bible like that. We just get the whole Bible as a set of rules. You must do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You know, hundreds and hundreds of little things you must do or must not do. And actually, most of those rules are there for us. That's why we have those 2 commandments that we read at church: love God and love neighbour.
Yeah.
And if everything we do should fit into those categories.
Yeah, I've always seen a Sabbath period, because we're talking about Sabbath in terms of Jewish tradition in the readings, of course. But a Sabbath period for me is a time that allows us to be recreated as more than just people who live to work. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's what we're being encouraged to do, isn't it? Is to become people who just live to work, as opposed to, you know, we work so that we can then have some time to live in a better way.
I think it's sad as well, though. I mean, I've thought about this a lot in the recent past. You know, we've just gone through all our APCMs and all of that, and you know, I think church can feel like hard work sometimes for a lot of people. A lot of fewer and fewer people take on roles of responsibility, and it sometimes feels to me that for everybody else, as well as for me, you know, coming to church is quite hard work because there's lots to do, and it's the balance between keeping things going and open for others, but also allowing us to rest in God when we're in church, or when we're doing things together. I guess it's about balance, really. And, you know, the whole idea of Sabbath is to have a bit of balance in our lives, so that, yes, you know, we're working hard and we're doing lots of things, but there needs to be time to stop and to just be and let God.
Yeah.
But I think we find it really difficult. I think we all find it really difficult.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely, Deb.
Yeah, and I try and do it with people who come to church. Actually, it's have time in church to be, rather than just come, and because there's so many demands made on people to keep church running.
Yeah.
And that can be draining. Whereas I think it should be life affirming and help people grow in their faith.
Yeah. But it comes from a good place, because what you're saying about thinking about times to have services, we want to serve and we want to make it easier for people to access what we hope to offer. And so we think of doing it differently, and then the trouble can seem that we have so many services and so many things happening that we're all aiming at different lots of people, and we don't actually come together, and then people expect it to be just what they want. But really, it's a bit like in families where people don't like the same food, so whoever's cooking, they make lots of different things, and everybody eats at different times and eats different things. But in the past, we just had to eat the same thing, and some days it was what we liked and some days it wasn't. But we were together, and that was what bound us together. I mean, I sound like a right old fogey. It's like the good old days. But, you know, in our attempts, which come from a good place, to be something for everybody, we can sort of be so disparate that we're not meeting. And that just feels like we're missing the heart of what this is all about. But I don't know the answer, because I don't know, maybe we've got too much choice these days.
I think the key thing, I mean, I've always thought that parts of Europe, France maybe comes to mind, have a good idea about this recreating ourselves, don't they? You worship in the morning, and then it's spirit, you know, that's the spiritual time renewal, and your own personal renewal, you know, your recreation time happens, you know, afternoon on a day. And there's something about perhaps that's how we should try and look at it. But we've become an ever more secular country where people just don't believe they need the the support of a spiritual being or a godly being in their lives.
And maybe that's the cause for there's so much problems with mental health today.
Possibly, Chris. Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the old George Herbert poem line in one of his poems, which we sing as a hymn. 7 whole days, not one in 7, I will praise you.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a key to me. We should be encouraging people, in their private lives and prayer to recognise that it's an important every day to worship God.
Yeah.
It's important to come together as a core group of the Christian people in any area, which is what we do in our public worship on Sundays or whatever day we do it.
And also to not to draw such bold, sort of definite lines about what is worship.
Yeah.
The Iona community, which is worship and work, one flows into the other. So when we're saying our prayers, it's the work of the people. And then when we do our work, it is also our way of worship. If we could see things a bit less sort of rigidly, perhaps we would take joy from that. But we still do need time to stop and to be still and to enjoy the beauty of the world and being with each other. I think all of that, I think it does go down to mental health, Chris. I think you're really right there. People just feel like there's no respite often.
I think there isn't. I think you're absolutely right. The world has become an ever ongoing place of busyness. 24 hours a day. I mean, I have these alerts, on my phone keep coming through. Every 5 seconds, the news, this, something happens there, and on and on and on it goes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We get no respite from constant information and being pumped out at us, and it is good to stop and just to be. Worshipping together is an opportunity, but we need to find a way of stopping and being. And like yourself, I've appreciated over the last 10 years a lot the prayer and time of the Northumbrian community.
Yeah.
Knowing that I pray here and Fred prays up there, all part of the same wider community, but we are praying together.
Yeah.
As the people of God.
Yeah.
So there we are. So perhaps the message today, dear viewer, is do find time just to stop and to be in the presence of God.
The Bible says we need a Sabbath, some time off.
It does, Chris, and you're absolutely right. And that's what I'm doing next week, dear viewer. I shall be away.
Good.
Jan and I are going to Llandudno.
Lovely.
For 4 or 5 days, just as a break. It's an extended part of our wedding anniversary time. So we're looking forward to that. And so I shan't be here. Are you here next week, Chris and Debs?
I'm not here next week, but I am the week after.
So
I'm here, and so I'm going to see if I can tempt Callie, who is our still quite new Pioneer Team Vicar. I haven't asked her yet, but I'm going to ask her if she'd like to have a foray into the world of Rev Chat. So let's see.
You could see if she watches Rev Chat and is preempted before you ask her.
Well, yes, that could well be. Yes, I'll test that.
Yeah, do test it.
So there we go.
Well, but Divya, I shall see you in 2 weeks' time, as will Chris and Debs. If you can keep the team,
I can keep the fires burning. I will. Yes.
You'll do a fantastic job, and that'll be great. And I look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks. Do take time, dear viewer, to stop and to be in the presence of God. Still, quiet. It's all good. 2 or 3 minutes, maybe, or an hour, or as long as you like. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon. Bye now.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.